Australia's largest fruit and vegetable grower, Costa Group, lifted its revenue by about 16% during the half year, but rising costs and inflation caused its profit to fall to $40 million. Costa Group dealt with challenging growing conditions, sharp increases in the price of fertiliser and inflationary pressures. Avocado prices collapsed to $1 to $1.50 a piece due to a huge oversupply. This caused revenue from the avocado business to get smashed, down 16%. Costa Chief Executive Sean Hallahan has called on the federal government to allow growers to start shipping avocados from Queensland and New South Wales over to Japan. I caught up with him a little earlier.
Yeah, it's challenging growing conditions without a doubt, Ed. And, the team at Costa, our team, our people, have been getting up every day and doing their job, right, which is growing great quality fresh produce, particularly avocados, and bringing them into the market.
What were your top-selling fruit and vegetables in this half, and how strong has demand been from your customers?
Demand's been very strong, Ed, across all of our categories, actually. So whether it's avocados or citrus or berries, mushrooms, tomatoes, we've seen really good consumer and customer demand for what we grow.
And what part of Australia is your sort of top markets?
We grow in various regions around Australia, and we supply the major retailers. And so therefore the major urban centres in Australia tend to be our biggest domestic markets. We're also, though, very heavily focused on exporting into international markets, and we grow as well overseas to supply those markets.
And that international market, shipping costs, just talk to me about what's changed with those over the last 6 months.
Yeah, I think it's been getting a little bit better, but fair to say that our team has had to deal with a rapidly sort of evolving situation. Costs have certainly been elevated, and actual container availability continues to be an issue.
And just talk to me about inflation in general over the last 6 months. What were the main things that went up in cost for Costa Group?
Yeah, well, I think like a lot of farmers, we've been facing some challenges in the traditional areas. The people that we use to harvest our crops, the fertilisers and chemicals that we need to grow them, transport and logistics to move things around, energy costs as well, although we've been quite protected ourselves this year because we had the foresight to lock in some longer term contracts a year or two ago.
Yeah, just give us an idea of how much fertiliser has gone up over the last year or so in price.
Well, I think it's a double effect really, because we're in this La Nina weather period where there's a lot of rain, as we all know, and lots of flooding all around Australia. In those sorts of wet conditions, you have to apply things more often in order to protect the crops. So there's been an increased uptick in application, and then the costs themselves have certainly gone up on some items have as much as doubled.
And when do you expect inflation to peak in Australia and start to come down again?
Well, smarter people than me will know the answer to that. I'm hoping that by the second half of next year, we've seen those inflationary impacts materially come down.
Federal government, they're holding a jobs summit next week. How difficult or challenging has it been for Costa to find and retain staff?
Well, we took this very seriously. In fact, throughout the history of Costa, we've regarded this very seriously. But a couple of years ago, we put some plans in place to start directly employing more people within our operations. And I'm really glad we were smart enough to do that. We've managed very well so far throughout the labour shortages that we're all feeling in Australia. We've got the benefits of our scale, and we've got the benefits of being able to move people from region to region. So yes, it's been challenging, but the team's done a great job today.
You called out avocados earlier. What's happened with the avocado market over the last 6 months?
Frustration is what's happening with the avocado market. Like I said before, we're doing our job. Costa people are getting up every day. They're growing those avocados to a really high standard, and then they're bringing them to market. We just want the Australian government to do its job and get us the export market access that we need. It's absolutely staggering to me that we're supplying Japan with WA avocados, and yet we cannot conclude a deal to supply them where most of the avocados are grown, which is the east coast of Australia.
Yeah, what are the big roadblocks there? Why can't we export avocados from the east coast of Australia over to Japan?
You tell me. The roadblocks, as far as I can see, are all internal. It's one government bureaucracy not talking to another one. It's the lack of a unified approach. It's the lack of getting serious about this. There's plenty of farmers, including ourselves, that are really suffering from this avocado glut at the moment. There's a very simple and obvious solution there, And as I said before, we're already supplying them from WA. We've been dealing with Japanese customers for over 15 years in our citrus business. We know the customers. We know they want Australian avocados, and yet we simply do not seem to be able to conclude a deal.
And just how large is Japan as a market opportunity for Costa?
It's large. Japan is about an 18 million tray market. It's a much bigger market than many of the other markets around it, which should also be opened up, by the way. But the reason that we're focused so much on Japan is twofold. One, we know the consumers there and the customers there want our avocados. Two, they already buy and consume a lot of them. And so this should be the single biggest focus for the Australian government at the moment.
And Sean, how confident are you feeling right now as the Chief Executive with the current way the economy's looking?
Oh, look, I think I'm a real believer in Australians and the resilience that we have. We've faced some of the most challenging conditions over the last few years, and yet everybody still keeps getting up and we still keep moving forward. And I think we'll continue to do that. I'm incredibly proud of the people at Costa. I'm incredibly proud of the job that they do every day.
Well, Sean Hallahan, Chief Executive at Costa Group, thanks for coming on the program today.
Thank you, Ed. Much appreciated.